Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest Chapter 196 is officially out, and again, this chapter, while I liked a lot of it, I still have some mixed feelings on it due to the pacing and presentation of this arc. We had a lot of cool stuff happen in here, something that I didn't think would happen, but also we had a fight, well, technically two fights, end in this singular chapter, with one of them kind of being a continuation from a previous chapter, and another one just being the actual glimpse and finale of the fight, which I have issues with the pacing of these fights for this entire arc, but we'll talk about that later. Also, sorry for no Fairy Tail video last week. I didn't have anything done or in the works at the time, and I had some other stuff going on. It was my birthday weekend, so I kind of had a lot of stuff going on, so I had nothing planned for that day, unfortunately, so I apologize for that. We'll start getting back into the usual schedule starting now. But before we jump into this chapter, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, I have a second channel called GW Comics where I talk about American comic books. I'm on my DC grind right now in my spare time, so I'm most likely going to be making a bunch of DC videos going forward with that channel for the time being. It's a passion project, and I'd appreciate if you guys go and check it out. I also have a manga podcast called Showdown over on the Panel Focus YouTube channel, where me, Nox, Yadogami, and Papa Trophy talk about 9 different manga from 3 different magazines. It's a lot of fun. Our discussions are really in-depth, and we basically wax poetic about even the shortest chapters. You guys will have a good time. Go and check it out. Links to the podcast and my second channel will be in the description down below. But now, on to the chapter. Chapter 196 of 100 Years Quest, titled Full Throttle Takeover. And it's very apt for this chapter, as this is a very takeover magic-based chapter, with the cover image being Mirajane and Elfman Strauss in the cover, the iconic brother-sister duo, in their new outfits, looking really, really cool. The chapter starts off directly from last chapter, with Elfman seemingly dealing the final blow to Gaia. But, much to my surprise, Elfman didn't take out Gaia, as he immediately gets back up and encases Elfman in the earth, saying the earth's love is joy clad in death, as he rages out as he's beginning to be engulfed by the ground around him, with Gaia furious, saying the Eurasian sex can't be killed so easily, which gave me a bit more hope for this fight to extend a bit longer. Also, Natsu is kind of still in the other dimension, reacting to everything that's going on. With Elfman being engulfed by the earth, he screams out for Mira, his big sis, as we transition over to her fighting Demon, as she tries to kick Demon, but is blocked, and the acid that she emits begins to burn Mira's skin. As what Demon says is that her acid rule is a demonic acid that melts everything. But she just said the key word that kind of got Mira a bit more excited and more confident, as she says, "Demon, that's right, you're a demon too," as she begins to finally use her takeover for the first time in this fight, as she finally unleashes her Satan soul form. As she says to Demon, "Demons, that's my favorite food." Now, this is honestly a really cool panel. I'm liking when Mira actually gets a chance to shine and do something really cool and look incredibly badass, because remember, she is supposed to be, or was, one of the top 5 of Fairy Tail to begin with, and she's still probably in the top 10, closer to the top 5, in my honest opinion. I could be wrong, I gotta look back on things, but she is supposed to be incredibly powerful. Even with that, we don't see her do much in the story, so I'm happy to see more of this. Mira turns into Satan Soul, and she begins to clash with Demon, and it seems that she's able to hold her own against the acid, as it's seemingly not affecting her at all. But right after they clash and we give a few blows, Mira transforms into her Sailor Soul, as she uses the macro curse to kind of make Demon's body move on its own and try and make Demon melt herself. But all Demon does is smile, saying, "Did you think my own magic would kill me?" As Mira's like, "Well, it was worth a shot, I guess." So now she basically uses the curse to make Demon not able to move from that singular spot, with Mira kicking Demon in the head so strong she explodes, but turns out her body is turned into acid, basically making her more like a Logia type from from One Piece, or more accurately to Fairy Tail, like Juvia, her body being mostly made out of acid, or can at least turn her body to acid when she's about to get hit with a fatal blow. Mira's trying to come up with a different macro usage of this curse, with Demon saying that she's kind of sick of this already, with Mira suddenly realizing that it's hard for her to breathe. With Demon finally saying that she noticed it finally, and apparently her magic sulfuric acid is using the oxygen in the atmosphere. And so she basically, after all the usage of her acid, began to get rid of the oxygen in the nearby atmosphere around them, which is very deadly, as by getting rid of the oxygen, your body can't really function much at all. So Mira, no longer able to breathe, is starting to collapse and gag, unable to breathe, now goes back into her base form, with Demon getting excited, as she then uses a acid bomb on Mira, seemingly hitting her with a fatal blow, shocking everybody as she collapses on the ground, with it seeming like Mira was defeated in the fight, with Natsu, again, still looking on in the fight. As we then transition to Elfman and Gaia with the rest of their fight, as Elfman's trying to fight back, getting engulfed by the earth that Gaia is summoning around him, until something catches Elfman's attention, as we get the reactions of Richard and Gaia, but also an image of ALDORON, with Elfman seemingly concentrating all of his strength, and breaks out of the earth with a seemingly piece of ALDORON in his right arm, shocking and confusing everybody, with the fact that Elfman managed to, quote-unquote, take over a part of ALDORON, with Gaia shocked that he was able to take over a dragon, with Elfman giving it the excuse, it's a type of beast, which, I guess, technicality, beast, soul, animal, all that stuff, dragons do kind of fall under the vague categorization of a beast, so I guess. But this is honestly kind of cool for me over the fact that many of us were kind of hoping that there'd be some sort of like takeover dragon type. So a dragon takeover spell or whatever. And Elfman seemingly did a partial version of this because he's able to make his right arm ALDORON's. And to an extent, it makes sense. The entire body, or at least area that they're on, is like part of ALDORON. So the fact he's not trying to take over ALDORON as a person, he's just taking over a piece of it, basically gave him ALDORON's power to an extent, I guess, giving him that wooden arm. I don't know if this counts as potential dragonification material. I'm not sure, maybe it's a workaround or something like that, but I don't know. Either way, this is the first time we're actively seeing Elfman take over a different creature, outside of the time with Rusty Rose. Then again, the fact that Elfman was able to take over a part of a fictional creature made from someone's imagination should kind of clue us into that there isn't too much of a limit on what can be constituted as a beast for his beast soul takeover magic. I know I'm kind of trying to explain this away. It's cool, I wish there was a bit more explanation for this, but broad characterization of the ability, I understand it. But just as Elfman unleashes this new arm, Mira gets back up. As this makes Angel excited and happy, as Mira just says, "I told you, didn't I? Demons are my favorite food." As then, Mira begins to get engulfed in a dark energy, saying, "I'll take your power too," which catches Demon off guard, and this panel of Mira saying, "I'll take your power too," as she's using another takeover spell is fantastic. One of the coolest panels I've seen of Mira in a long time. I wish it was a full page. It would have been fantastic to get the full menace of Mira when she gets serious. As we then get a 2-page spread of the Strauss siblings using their abilities to take out their opponents. Mira turning into Mirajane ALEGRIA with her ALEGRIA form, which focuses on poison, so she most likely took that acid into that form to actually hurt and deal real damage to Demon. And Elfman dealing the actual finishing blow with his beast arm ALDORON. As the chapter ends, with both of these demons turning back into the books they were created from, Elfman standing triumphantly with a smile, and Mira saying, "Got it," ending the chapter. Now, like I said, I like a lot of this chapter for the sheer instance that Mira gets to do something cool. She uses more than one transformation for her Satan Soul ability, using base Satan Soul, using Sayla, and using ALEGRIA to finish stuff off, because by extension that should be her strongest form, since that was basically one of the stronger spells of Tartarus, and she was able to evaporate the entire ocean for a second when she unleashed it in the final arc of the manga, in the mainline manga. So I'm glad she used that, and seemingly she absorbed the demon acid of demon to incorporate the power up her ALEGRIA form, which I like. I wish there was a newer demon form for Mira, like how we got a new beast soul for Elfman in the last chapter, and a new partial beast soul takeover this chapter with Elfman. But it is what it is. I like Mira getting a win. Which now only leaves Gajiel's fight, which I pray to God is more than a chapter. Mira's technically took up the chapter for the most part, or at least most of a chapter, outside of the glimpses we've had previously over the course of the arc since they returned. And Elfman now, in total, has a full chapter, counting the last chapter and this chapter, for his fight that we see on screen, instead of just clashes here and there in between moments. The fights in this arc, I will keep saying, are my biggest gripe and complaint, that bringing in Team B, they should have multiple chapters. Juvia's I was fine with because it had a lot of strategy. Elfman's, it's leaps in logic with the previous chapter, with, like, I made an explanation as to how he had that new serious form, but now he did ALDORON, and again, loose logic for Beast Soul, and I explained away that that is most likely part of Beast Soul transformation. He didn't take over the actual full Dragon of ALDORON, just a small piece of it to get that power to break free and deal damage. And so that kind of has loose logic, and also an example of what happened back in Tenro Island with Rusty Rose and his imaginary monster creature that he created that Elfman took over. It makes sense to a degree. I'm glad we had a type of dragon takeover, because I feel like a lot of people were kind of hoping for more variety with takeover magic, as was I, and I think this is really, really cool. Kind of wish it was a bit more explained, but again, I guess with takeover it has a bit of loose logic. Mira not getting a new form this arc, I really wish was the case, unfortunately. But at least we got to see her use her ALEGRIA form again, because she only used it one time in the final arc, and that was to take out in one-shot KOs Irene's lackeys that she gave life to from actual swords. Which, that's another thing we could talk about at some later point. But either way, Mira was really cool this chapter. She showed how badass she is. She used multiple forms and tried using strategy like the macro curse to kind of make Demon kill herself and all that stuff, which didn't work. But either way, Mira showcasing when she gets serious, she is strong, but caught off guard, she can get dealt damage. But since she was fighting against Demon, she did technically have the advantage, being able to take at least a part of Demon's power to take over and add it to herself, thus giving her ALEGRIA form most likely a power boost. Either way, the fights in general should have been longer, especially Mira's. At least a bit more of a at least show her dominating, fighting an actual demon, because she has demon takeover magic. I feel like that would have been really cool. I don't think anybody would have minded Mira dominating this fight if we saw a bit more of that, due to the fact that she is a demon takeover user, and that she has the advantage against demons with all the different forms that she has gotten over the story. But it is what it is. Pacing, all that stuff, big disappointment in that degree, but I still have stuff I like this chapter, so I'll let it slide a bit for now. Who knows, maybe on a reread and a binge it'll flow better, but whatever the case, I still have these criticisms, they haven't gone away. It is what it is. Here's hoping, with the last shred of hope that I have for Team B to have really long fights, or at least a longer fight than usual, is Gajiel's fight. And I really hope we don't skip over ALDORON versus Selene before we get more of Ferris and Ignia. But what did you guys think of this chapter? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also give me ideas for future fairy tale videos that I want to do. I have some ideas, but I want a bit of a longer list so I can get in advance on making some more videos for you guys. So let me know. And with all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.